I want to talk about Shawn Mendes because I, for some reason, am a stan, but not in a way where I feel like everything he does is perfect, necessarily. And for a really long time, I've been getting this very strange, if I'm being honest, just feeling in my heart, in my spirit, that I want to see him do more than just be a celebrity. And like, yeah, I get it. He has done a lot of innovative and progressive things over the years to help the world become a better place. But I just feel like I'm torn. As a stan, I sort of have this love-hate relationship with him because all of the reasons that I love him are the fact that he gives me something to believe in. And all of the reasons that I hate him are because he hasn't given me anything to believe in. And I know that that doesn't make any sense. I understand, that he's just human. And like every day, he's just trying to figure this shit out like the rest of us. But I do feel like the direction of his career is in dire need of the answer to a higher calling, one that doesn't involve the musical art or any form of artistic expression that involves the more popular aspects of his personality, I guess. He's someone who's always talking about speaking the truth. And he just has this like moral code of honesty that he preaches a lot. And if I'm being honest, I've spent a lot of time studying Shawn and observing his personality and the way he responds to his questions in an interview and the art that he's made. And I've done very thorough examination of like his entire career and just overall the person that he is. The ceiling, because it's like white and blank, it becomes a canvas. And I don't know how, but I have this like ability to paint on the ceiling my own thought process. And so I can like see it in a way that I couldn't if I were in any other state of meditation, because that's really what it is, but like with my eyes open. And so I'm laying there and I'm just kind of like really upset with myself. And it's interesting because I had just recently found out that he had some like backlash for tweeting some racist things back in like 2019. Well, the tweets weren't from 2019, but that's when it kind of resurfaced because people love history. I remember like people talking about how because they are black or because they have some kind of racial background and they support Shawn, that they get a lot of hatred for supporting him. First of all, I was shocked by a number of things. One, that when I looked up Shawn Mendes and like racial, like that was what I typed into the search engine on Google, Shawn Mendes racial. When I typed that in, legit, the only like the date is 2019. It doesn't go past 2019. That for one was interesting to me. Second of all, I found it interesting that people were talking about how they receive hatred from others for supporting Shawn. And for me personally, I receive hatred from myself. And it's a really dark and deep internal kind of battle that I go with like supporting Shawn. And not even about the tweets, because I really don't give a fuck about that. Like clearly I don't believe he is that kind of person at heart, but it doesn't even matter. For some reason, there's this part of me that fucking despises the fact that I support him. Like, I feel like I'm betraying myself or something because of this privileged white man who makes it seem like he's so fucking for equality and love and all this shit. But really, I feel like, not to say that he hasn't done anything, but I just feel like ashamed of myself for how much I fucking love him. And it really hurts because it feels like self-hatred. And then I'm just sitting there and I'm like, where does this stand? Like, where is this coming from? Where is this, all of this internal, like, self-hatred coming from? Like, I have to be in a state of denial. Well, I don't have to, but I have chosen to finally acknowledge it because I've just been really, really doing some deep, like, healing recently. But I'm daily in denial about the fact that I support Sean as a stan. Like, I fucking stan him, but I also hate myself for it. And so again, I'm like, yo, where is this coming from? Because I don't like always having to deny my heart. Like, I don't like that. So what is it? Like, really, what is it? And I started realizing that I don't even think it's about him. I don't think it has anything to do with anything in particular except for conditioning, programming. Because I started to realize that the reason I love Sean, like I was saying earlier, is that he gives me something to believe in. Because nature has infinite intelligence, and art ultimately is the expression of that intelligence that exists within the nature of the human, of its mind to be infinite and creative. And so all of the art that Sean has created has allowed me to unlock and unleash my ability to believe in a God. And that's something that I don't even have control over. It is the art of it. It's like you can't take, it's like you kind of have to call it what it is. The fact of the matter is that the man has amazing art. And it is his artistic expression that has gifted me with faith in divinity and there being a force that does work for my highest good. And when it comes to art, there is no way to separate really the meaning of the art and how it resonates from the artist. You can try as hard as you fucking can, but it's not really gonna work that much. Like you are always gonna in some way feel a relation or some kind of resonance to this person because of the art that they have created, whether you really like who they are or not, right? And that's the power of nature. It is all powerful. And so it's hard for me to really deny the fact that I love Sean because his art has allowed me to learn the love of self. And I feel like that's also because, and I was literally just like scrolling through his Instagram just so I can catch up. I wanted to catch up on like remember everything that I've learned about him that has impacted my impression of him. And so I watched this video that he made basically saying how his relationship with social media isn't that healthy and that he's been working on it. And it was when It'll Be Okay first came out, and he was saying how he uses music to sort of express a part of himself, or to express from a part of himself that he wouldn't be able to get to in normal conversation. And it's interesting because that reflects in the way his art resonates. It allows me to tap into a part of myself that I wouldn't be able to get to just by having a normal conversation. But I think that that's all art, right? That's the power, the magic of art. And so anyways, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but going back to the love-hate thing. So that's why I love him, because through him, like, his art has allowed me to believe in God. And it's hard for me to turn that off, because if I do, then it will completely take away from me the faith that I have right now in there being a force of good. because that was gifted to me by nature through his art. Whether I want to credit him or not, it's still there, and it connects me to him, my faith to his art. But then the hate comes in when I see his skin and I see his privilege, and it's really hard for me to admit that I have faith in this man and his message when it's programmed in my brain to hate anyone who looks like him because of systematic oppression and the way that over generations and generations and generations of injustice, it has created this generated emotional reaction to men who are white and privileged and in a position of authority. And Sean fits all of those categories. The authority is his fame, period. The man has hundreds of millions of followers that literally give a fuck if he breathes. That's power. He's privileged, clearly, and he's male. All of which beings who share these characteristics are also often linked to the karmic imbalance that exists in our justice system. And it's very hard for me to accept the love that I feel for him because for some reason I just feel like everything that he says is a fucking lie. Even though I have memorable evidence of his art doing good. And so there's this internal duality, and I'm like, okay, Mina, well, where does that come from? Like, how is that programmed into me? And then I think about every time a brown person gets killed and the natural response, the programmed response that Black people are trained to have is rage, hatred. And over time, this hatred is attached to a symbol, sort of like a trigger. Symbols, I feel like, are the only real form of imagery that exists in the universe because it is really, really, really connected to the structure of a person's unconscious. And so this symbol, right, of male, white privilege, authority is put into your mind as a symbol of fucking hatred. And I started thinking like, okay, well, what is it about them? Our experiences with them, what is it about us that makes them do things to harm us? What is it? Like, and I don't really necessarily think that it's just our skin color. And so I start really thinking about it, and I'm like, I for some reason was able to kind of put myself in a position like this, right? Of, let's say I am a white male, right? And I'm privileged and I have this authority. And so I'm looking at myself as a brown skinned girl who was raised in not the worst kind of poverty, but can you really even put poverty on a scale even then, right? Having to watch your mother scrape nickels and fucking quarters from every inch of the house just to pay for food. I think I would call that some kind of poverty. So I'm looking at myself, right, as this brown girl, and I'm a white male who's privileged and I have all this fucking authority, right? I'm looking at her and I start being able to kind of sense this lack of control. Because then I started thinking, like, for me personally, if I see any kind of white man, it doesn't even matter what, a lot of the times he's transparent. You'll be able to know exactly what the fuck his personality is like just by looking at him. 9 times out of 10, you'll know whether he's racist. You'll know whether he's like for the whole equality thing. You'll know just by looking at him. You can tell. But on the other side of that, you can look at a black man and not know what the fuck he's thinking at all. And I started realizing that those two things have the exact same impact. That a white man who's transparent and you can tell exactly what the fuck he's thinking, right? Based on what it is that you perceive about him and who he is, you would either think he is a threat or an ally based on what you get from him. But the same goes for a black man that you can't tell anything about. You can't even predict what move he's gonna make, what he's thinking, what his personality is like. And in that way, you can either perceive him as a threat or an ally. And you won't ever know until they really, both of them, until they start speaking, until you have some kind of interaction with them. And so there's already this kind of having no way to tell if a person feels, what they feel, if they feel anything at all. I started to realize that, if you can't tell what a person is gonna do, right? If you think that they are fucking unpredictable and it's hard for you to read them, you are gonna immediately just go with feeling nothing for them at all. You can't control the situation if you don't know what a person is thinking, if you can't tell what they're feeling, if you can't predict their next action, if they don't show any type of evidence that will allow you to be 100% in control. At that point, you turn off your feelings. So now I'm getting to this root of like why we are treated as less than human, because there seriously is no empathy on either sides, really, if I'm being honest. It's heartbreaking, really, that I somehow have to get over this extreme hatred for this man that I love, because it's programmed into me to see people who have all of his characteristics and immediately assume that they want to fucking hurt me and that they hate me, that they're racist. And I think for me, this is the beginning. This is taking a step into the right direction for me. This is helping to restore that karmic balance that exists within our justice system. I think it is about honesty. And I also feel like that's probably why I've probably been so hopeful with Sean, because I feel like he can do so much more with the power that he has if he really gives a fuck about like equality and love and stuff. And like, I get it, like I'm not trying to devalue anything that he's already done, but he talks so much about telling the fucking truth, right, that I want to know what he does when he has some kind of racist thought. How does it show up? How does it sound when it comes into your head? How do you feel about it when it shows up? Do you feel guilty? Does it feel natural? And then on top of that, what is it that you tell yourself in order to not express this thought? In order for it to not somehow show up in your personality today? Because even those racist tweets, right, that people dug up, it came to the light in 2019. Those are still from when nobody knew who the fuck he was, right? So clearly something has had to change from then until now, because now he's a grown fucking man. And if he can make decisions like ending an entire fucking world tour to live his life, I think he can tell us the truth. And he has this entire foundation that is literally built on giving voices and platforms and resources to innovators and people who are working to change the world. He's always talking about awareness, is involved in some kind of awareness. And I feel like, yeah, that's great and that's good and all, but I feel like the real change is in the self-awareness. And I'm not saying that he hasn't contributed to self-awareness. I'm saying that I feel like he could be creating a different impact, because he talks so much about telling the fucking truth and wanting to be honest, right? And this is not me trying to be hostile, but I'm just expressing myself, because how the fuck else do you talk about something like this? The thing is, people don't know how to control their self and their impulses. People don't know what discipline is like, and clearly there's evidence that Sean has some kind of self-awareness, that he understands the importance of discipline and has been able to keep his system of faith and his system of belief, his thoughts, in a way that somehow eliminates the expression of racist, prejudice, and discriminating thoughts consciously. I'm not saying that he hasn't ever fucking said something that could have been a little bit ignorant, but I'm saying that it is impressive that he has all of these fucking followers, right? And all this authority, all this privilege, and somehow has been able to keep this consistent behavior throughout his career. That is why I feel like he can serve as a mirror to those who look up to him and see him as a male who is white with privilege and authority, right? They see him as a fucking god, period. And I think that if he really wants to make a change, he will allow us into his mind. Because people need to know what it is like being inside of a self that is introspective and self-aware. And I think he can really guide those who are confused about what a racist or discriminating or insensitive or ignorant thought sounds like, or an ignorant action, right? Because if they can identify the thoughts, then they will be able to know what is inappropriate, what is just and what is unjust. But this is the thing, like, this is where the change begins, in the self. People are so fucking busy trying to make change in places that don't fucking matter and won't fucking budge. If we want to make change, we need people like Sean, who somehow have this perfect record, in my eyes, right? Very, very, very little slips. Little mistakes across he literally has even had a fucking Latina girlfriend, and somehow has managed to not completely fuck that up in terms of racial publicity, right? Like being in the public and that whole Canadian Latina thing, and them somehow being like this pair that the fucking public just loves, right? Okay, well, I feel like he can fucking do more, and I want to see him do more. And I get it, it's not my business to really talk about any of his personal life, but again, I'm a fucking stan. That's what stans do. They overstep their fucking boundaries. And I really feel like if Sean really wants to make an impact, that starts with him really letting us know what he thinks. And like, I understand he doesn't want people to judge him or think less of him, but if I'm being honest, I think less of myself, because I don't know if the person that he's portraying on the outside is really true to who he is on the inside. And I feel like if he isn't even being honest about the racist thoughts that he does possibly have, because his fucking fans range from an incredible, span of races and ethnicities and cultures and backgrounds. So his fame within itself has put him in a lot of predicaments where he is met with people who are nothing fucking like him, and somehow he has created a decent enough self-awareness to be able to not publicly offend any of his fans, intentionally at least. So if you do have these thoughts, what do they sound like? Because people need to be able to identify them. And then on top of that, like I said, how do you feel about it? What in what ways do you talk through with yourself? What process, right? Like what line of thinking, what stream of thought do you impress onto your mind in order to reprogram and realign yourself with your value of equality, with your value of love, with seeing all as one? How do you do it? Because there are a lot of people who do not know how to. And if we really want to make a change, this is something that I feel like he can teach beautifully. Why? Because he's been doing it for years. Like, I get it. His music, right, it's amazing, great. But he has somehow created an awareness of his own nature and has been able to align with a process of thinking that prevents him from saying certain words, from doing certain things, from seeing people in certain perspectives, from having a certain type of impression of someone. If you can stand in front of somebody who looks nothing like you and completely have your guard down, how the fuck do you do that? How? Tell us how. And I'm serious, like, I'm not even joking. Like, these are the type of things that I feel like are the kind of knowledge that needs to be available for people from someone who is like Sean. These are the resources that really need to be out. And like, I understand that, yes, it's important for our voices. And when I say our, I mean brown people, black voices. Yeah, I understand it's powerful and good and everything for us to be out there speaking, but we aren't the ones who are fucking killing us in terms of racism. If we're talking about systematic oppression and karmic imbalance within our justice system, I am talking about white male authority. Their system of belief, their capacity to be self-aware and to acknowledge and identify thoughts and emotions, impressions and feelings that are unjust is very fucking absent. And the only change that is going to be made in our justice system are people like Sean who are self-aware. I would love to interview him because I have a lot of thought-provoking questions. And when I say provoking, I mean that seriously, because they may be fucking uncomfortable and annoying. But I feel like if he really is passionate about this change, and I know this, right, because he consistently talks about wanting to do more, right? I believe that whatever he has seen himself do in his career, somehow I think is only reaching surface level impact. And I really feel like he's coming from a much, 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 much deeper place within himself that a lot of people don't even know exist. And a lot of people don't know how to get where he is. People who look just like him and share his exact same characteristics have no idea how to get to where Sean is. And I really think that it's not even about, like him achieving all the fucking world awards that he possibly can. I think it is about leading people from where he is to help get to where he is. And I know that he's been trying to do this, but I just think it needs to have some guidance that gets more from him. He has so much potential. Seriously. And if you do have these thoughts, like I said, please be honest about it, because that is the only thing that is really going to create an impact. People can't be out here fucking lying about having a racist thought, having a discriminating thought, because that literally is just you feeding into the system. That is not justice. That is not equality. That is not love. Tell us what you're thinking. And then let us know how you stop that. And if you're still in the process of stopping it, then how are you battling it every single fucking day? Because that battle will only get easier if everyone else is literally aware. Because I'm thinking about it and I'm like, yo, would I be mad if Sean said that he thinks something extremely fucked up about a black girl, like how she looks or what she would be like, or if he has some kind of prejudice, I don't know, or a stereotypical belief about black girls? What the fuck is it? Say it. And then tell me exactly how you feel about that thought. And what are you telling yourself to change that perspective? Because clearly you have been able to look at a lot of black girls in their face and acknowledge them and treat them with respect. Now let us know how. Please enlighten us. And I really think that the fame that he has had has brung him wealth, right? Wealth that is fucking intangible. It is invisible, but it is the most high form of wealth. And what is that? Self-knowledge. He has an understanding of the worth of the self, that it is equivalent to all. And I think that people look at his fame and they see a guy who's fucking got it all. But when I look at his fame, I see a guy who's been taught a fucking lesson. And that he's learned from it. From whatever force that gave him all this fucking power and this authority. I think him meeting and seeing all these people and having all of these experiences has allowed him to learn wisdom. What it means to be self-disciplined. And I don't think that wisdom, right, which is wealth, I don't think that should be kept a secret. That wealth is his thoughts, his pattern of thought. It is a stream of consciousness that is love. It flows through him consistently. And if he really wants to help, then he needs to invest that into the community. But then again, it's all on him. This is his life. If he doesn't want to fuck up his image like that, then he doesn't have to. But it would really help me in this battle that I have inside of whether to love or hate him. I'm not gonna say that I would choose hate because I believe in love, but I would understand why to an even deeper capacity. It would be because people like him who have power, who don't say shit about the truth.